LD, why you gotta be trolling to start the day? Well, why do you gotta start with the troll? Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. What's up, LD? What's up, Jamie? Hot off the presses. It is absolutely hot off the presses today because normally I tell you that I finish a list and I sleep on it and then I make changes in the morning. That didn't happen with this list. I had to sleep on finishing the list first this morning. And then it's hot off the presses. So we're going to react to it in real time. And I will let you know two things. One, I already hate the list. Two, hardest list to put together so far of this series. Janelle is already prepared to complain about how low I've ranked the Packers offensive line. I think I'm incredibly fair with where I put them. I don't know. After Team 10, who cares? The order, who cares? If you don't make the top 10 in this list and you're not in the bottom like 5, you can go in any order. The top 10 I thought was very easy. I thought the top 5 was very easy. I thought the bottom 5 was very easy. The middle, like 20 teams, most difficult thing in the world. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. So good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great start to today's Wednesday. I hope everyone's having a great start to their Wednesday here. I've got the setup ready to go here. I do need to turn on my ring light. What's up, Taylor B? A good morning to you, folks. I need to turn on the ring light. So just stand by. I got to turn on the ring light, and then we can get started. Okay, we are ready to go. Now that the ring light is good, we can transition into this screen. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Let's see if we have the big screen up. We do. We have the big screen up, ready to go. We've got the other screen with the rankings list ready to go if we need it. Sportsnet will make this the last pre-show question. What do you think about Messi coming to America and the MLS? It's been rumored for a while that it was going to be the move for him, and I'll be intrigued to see. I still think he's got some stuff left in the tank. There's some gas left in the tank, so we'll see how he plays for Inter Miami. Should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of fun to see a player who still, I think, got some gas left in the tank play at the MLS level as they continue to try to grow that league into something. Taylor B suggesting this for Friday with the Jaguars finally updating their stadium for the first time since '95. Rank the stadiums. We can consider ranking the stadiums. We could consider doing it. I will tell you, we're gonna do a coaching staff ranking as well. We're gonna look at head coach, offensive, defensive, and special teams coordinators. We are gonna do that at some point as per this list. All right, folks, we are. If that's the thing. I haven't been to a lot of them, so like I can't rank stadiums, but we could do it maybe for fun. We can have a conversation. We'll maybe sneak that in on Friday. Okay, here we go. I'm going to press the record button for the podcast feed, and we will get started. And, I mean, listen, Heldy, RC, I think you can kind of guess who the number one team is based on the thumbnail picture. So, I think you can figure that out. But here we go. And welcome into the Wednesday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back with you here once again on the show. Hope everybody is having a great start to their Wednesday. We are back deep in the weeds. Our 2023 positional ranking series continues today here on the TDN Daily podcast. We finish the offensive side of the ball. It is the offensive line groups. The starting 5 offensive linemen for all 32 teams ranked 1 through 32. And there are 2 pieces of information to share here at the top of the show before we do truly get into the weeds on this one. The hardest list to make so far of the ones that we have done in this series. This is the hardest list to put together. And the second piece of information is this is the first time that a list was finalized just before the show pressed record. So this list is smoking hot off the presses. Like, this is about as raw as the list is ever been when presented to you guys here on the show. Normally, I finish the list, I sleep on it, I make a couple of changes before we start the show, and then we go. We haven't even allowed that process to figure itself out. Because this list was so hard, I think after my top 10, it was almost impossible to differentiate between some of these offensive lines and to debate how you feel about certain players and what you're going to prioritize. If teams don't truly have 5 really solid offensive linemen, what are you going to put a priority on? This is a very, very difficult task, but we are going to do it here. And unlike the quarterback, running back, wide receiver and tight ends. We're not going to get too in the weeds on the specific players. I'll read the groups. I'll read the list and the groups as we go. But if we want to debate specific players, and we can do that battle here at the end. So without further ado, the chat, not debating who number one is. They have a pretty good feel of who number one is. And it's because it's obvious who number one is. It's the thumbnail of today's show. And I don't know how you can look at an offensive line that's Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson and say that that is not the best offensive line in all of football. And we are going to do a very rare thing. We are locking it in. It is number one. I'm not going to hear anything else. It is number one for me. Slam dunk, hands down, no doubt, easiest thing to do. I think the second easiest thing to do is to put a team at number two. And for me, it's the Cleveland Browns. Almost as good as Philadelphia. You could probably make the case if you wanted to that you would take Cleveland's offensive line over Philly's. I'm not for the sake of this show, but this is very, very close. Wills, Bitonio, Pocic, Teller, and Conklin, again, all across the starting line, all across all five positions, you've got very good starters at those spots. And in some cases, you have above average starters, probably guys that would be top five at their respective positions. So for me, Jedrick Wills, Bitonio, Pocic, Teller, Conklin, again, you check all the boxes at all five positions. That allows you to be in the upper tier of the upper tier here, and that gets you at number two. And we're going to lock them in at number two. We're not going to move off of them being at number two. Number three, this is where maybe you could debate a couple of teams, but for me, I went with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs were the team for me that came in at number three. And I know they just added Donovan Smith, and this really depends on your opinion of him and what you think he's got left in the tank. But I look across the rest of this offensive line. They've got Joe Thuney. They've got Creed Humphrey. They've got Jawan Taylor, who they signed in free agency to play the right side. I think he could be fine there. They got Trey Smith inside at right guard. Again, across all five positions, I think they've got at least solid play at that position. And when you can say that you have that, you probably have a little bit above solid play at those five positions. So for me, the Chiefs slot in at number three, and I'll lock them in here at number three. RC in the chat says, I'd put the Cowboys at three ahead of Kansas City, but I get it. Fear not, RC. The Dallas Cowboys are number four, right? They are number four for me, so they are just right behind. So the definition of splitting hairs here when looking at this list, but I put Dallas number four. Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele. Couple pieces on that line that maybe you worry about a little bit. You worry about the health of the left side of that line. Zach Martin, you know what you're going to get from him at right guard. So for me, I think there's enough pieces to like here. And again, they still got some top end talent here. And so we'll put them at number four, and we will lock them in. I'm going to lock in the top four. I feel pretty comfortable about that. Taylor says the Chiefs left tackle worries me. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on what you think Donovan Smith still has left in the tank. But it's not like Orlando Brown was particularly good last year. So if Donovan Smith is just a little better than what they got out of Orlando Brown, I think they're going to be in good shape, and I think it's going to slot in as one of the top offensive lines in all of football. So I'll rapid fire the rest of the top 10, and I think the way we'll do this for today's show, because I think there's going to be a lot of debate, I think we're going to lock in as we go. All right, I think we're gonna kind of do this in chunks, and if we want to undo a lock, that's fine. But I think we'll look at the top 10, and we can debate the top 10, and if there's a team outside the top 10 that we want to bring into the conversation, we can do it, and we'll do this in real time, because I think this list, more so than any other list that we've done, is going to have movement, and so I think if we save all the movement to the end, it's going to get a little crazy. So I think we do the movement as we go here. So here's the rest of the top 10 as I see it. I've got Detroit at 5. I've got Baltimore at 6. I've got Atlanta at 7. I've got the Chargers at 8. I've got the Vikings at 9. And I've got the Broncos at 10. So that is the way that I see it. And just some quick thoughts on a couple of these teams. I think Baltimore's offensive line is really, really strong. They certainly made the case to be a top 4 team. I think Atlanta, the big question mark that you would ask about them is what they're going to do at left guard. It's more than likely going to be Matthew Bergeron, but that is a big question mark. But other than that, I like a lot of what they have there. The Chargers, they've got probably 4 really good starters in my opinion. You've got Slater, you got Johnson, you got Lindsley, and you got Salyer. I think are all solid at worst options. Trey Pipkins may be the weak link there at right tackle, but again, overall, a solid group. And then rounding out the top 10, we've got Minnesota and Denver. So I think the two-part question that I would ask everybody here that is listening to the show in the live YouTube chat, do we want to change any of the order here in the top 10? Is there any team outside the top 10 that we think needs to come up? That is the question that I will ask this group. Is Carolina's top 10? They're a little lower for me than that. They slide in at 19 right now on this list. Packers should be no lower than 7. Number 2 in adjusted yards last year. Number 6 in adjusted sack rate. Top 5 in PFF. Packers O-line is definitely better than Minis. I have Green Bay 17 for me on this list. And maybe I'm betting on some upside with some other teams. And I know one team where I'm betting on some upside with their team being healthy. And that would be the team at number 11. I have the Saints at number 11. I'm betting on the upside of Penning, Pete, McCoy, Ruiz, and Ramczyk all staying healthy throughout the course of the season. And again, based on where we're at right now, I have to project ahead. Trevor Penning maybe a little bit of a question mark to going into being the starting left tackle going into the season, but that's kind of the way that I see it right now. Sportsnet wants to know the bottom 5. I think the bottom 5 are pretty easy to lock in. I got Tennessee at 32. I've got the Rams at 31. I've got the Commanders at 30. We got the Bucks at 29. We've got the Cardinals at 28. That is the way we see this breaking down here at the bottom of the list. Cardinals at 28, Bucks at 29, Commanders at 30, the Rams at 31, and the Titans at 32. Bailey says, I missed it by how much we are counting scheme here because the Packers have elite coaching, which turns out great units, but no idea if they'd be that good if you changed situation. Yeah, I mean, there's part of this conversation that needs to be about scheme, but it's also about the talent of the players, right? Because if we take scheme into account, we'd have to go back and retroactively kind of discuss some other lists here about, running back, wide receiver. Because again, Debo becomes a player. He's the example that we constantly bring up here. He becomes a player where you'd have to kind of change the way we feel about that 49ers wide receiver room because the way he's used in the scheme. That's not really the I think the merits of the list here. So that would kind of be the way that I look at it. So Atlanta, I love the talent of this Atlanta group. I will defend them being a top 10 team on this list. If we want to move them down a little bit, that's fine. But I will defend them being a top 10 team. I think Matthews and McGarry are great pillars on your tackle spots. And so for me, that's enough to get them into the top 10. But that's just, again, personal opinion here. And I knew this list would be very divisive. I knew this list would create a lot of controversy because, again, I think this is the ultimate, and we've said it a bunch when talking about some of these other lists, but I think this list 1 through 32 is beauty in the eye of the beholder, right? I think you can come to certainly different conclusions when it came to this list. There's a lot of love for the Packers to move up this list. I don't think I can get them in the top 10, but I can move them up. I can definitely move them up. So let me put them in bold, and we can discuss moving them up here. So here's what we'll do. We will continue to go through this list. And then I'll go to the big screen for the YouTube audience where we can kind of see where all these teams are. Then we can see these chunks, and then we can make some changes from there. So we read the top 10. The next chunk, we got the Saints at 11, the Seahawks at 12, the 49ers at 13, the Patriots at 14, the Bengals at 15, Steelers 16, Packers, as mentioned, 17, Dolphins 18, Panthers 19, Bears 20, Texans 21, Raiders 22, Bills 23, Giants 24, Colts 25, Jets 26, Jags 27, Cardinals 28, Bucks 29, Commanders 30, Rams 31, and the Titans 32. So that is the list 1 through 32. We've locked in the top 4 as well on this list. I've got Detroit at 5, Sportsnut. That's where they clock in here on this list. Again, you got Decker and Sewell. You got two pillars at your tackle spots. Ragnow's a pretty good center. You're good up the middle. Bailey wants to know where the Vikings are. They are 9th on this list, the Minnesota Vikings. Darisaw, Cleveland, Bradbury, Ingram, and O'Neal. That line is 9th. The Texans, 21st on this list. Tunsil, Green, Scruggs, Mason, and Howard. I love the left side of this line in Tunsil and Green. I think Mason's pretty good on the right side. I think if you were going to look at 2 question marks for this offensive line, you'd look at Scruggs and Howard. And that's kind of what brings them down a little bit. I kind of wanted them to go a little bit higher because I just think I like the group a little bit more, but that's not really what we're doing here. We're looking at where this team stands going into 2023. And so for me, I think this was a pretty acceptable range, anywhere from 20 to 25. I felt pretty good about. And again, I like this Texans group a lot. I think by season's end, I think they'll be a top half of the league offensive line. I think they'll be in the top 16. So we can move some teams around. Indy, Heldy would like to know where I had Indy. I had them 25. Again, I like Nelson. Kelly had a rough year. Bernard Raymond's a question mark at left tackle. Will Fry's at right guard. I have some question marks. So there's if I can get to 3 question marks about you, like you had to be pretty low on this list. That's kind of the rule of thumb that I had for this. If I had positions on your offensive line where I had a couple question marks, there was arbitrarily a ceiling that I put on you of where you could ultimately fall. But yeah, that's that's kind of where I fell in with Indy. Pittsburgh's a team that's come up here. People saying I'm a little high on them. Yeah, I think I'm the projection there is with Jones and Samalu being on that left side, really being solid for them, and that may be a little bit of a projection. I felt as if 16 was really splitting the difference for where they could probably be, and maybe if worst case scenario where they'll be if it takes a while for Jones to come along in year one. And so that felt to me 16 felt like splitting the difference, but maybe it wasn't. Yeah, healthy. Let me re-emphasize something, and I know you've been here for a lot of these shows, and I know there's a lot of people that have been here for a lot of these shows. This list is not where I think these groups are going to end the season, right? And we just mentioned this with Houston. I think Houston, if we did this list at the end of the year, maybe we'll do this. Maybe at the end of the season, we'll go back and look at these lists and say, where would we rank these groups after seeing them in 2023? But I think Houston's group, if we did that project by season's end, would be higher than 21st on this list. And so that to me is, the difference is because I think they'll play higher than this. Like you mentioned with Indy, I think they'll play higher than this. And there's a lot of hate in the chat right now about where I have the Packers, and that's kind of sidebars. And Janelle says, so for quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end, projection wasn't considered. Now for O-line, you are considering projection. That's not true. With some of these groups, some of these positions, we have discussed where a team could potentially be if everything worked out and what the worst case scenario would be. And we've tried to split the difference when it comes to rookie talent. I'll give you a perfect example when we did the tight end show. We had two rookie tight ends that we were trying to figure out what to do with, and that was Dalton Kincaid and Darnell Washington. And I originally had Pittsburgh a little bit lower because of, I thought, not a whole lot that we can count on Darnell Washington in year one. Freiermuth, there was a good case that was made for him to be a little bit better and to be able to buoy that group a little bit more. And so we made a change. And so it's not completely about projection. It's not. It is what you've done now and where I think you stand going into this season. And so for some of these teams, and Janelle, I know you're a big Packers fan, so I'll wrap up your question discussing the Packers. When your entire group, when your entire room is all a projection, that's got to put you pretty low. Because I don't have anything to put stock into going into 2023. So for the Packers at tight end, I have nothing to judge off of. I have nothing to judge on at the tight end position for them. Now, when you get down to the range that I put them above a couple of other teams because I like the talent of the two tight ends that they drafted over some other teams. And so that allowed them to be in that range. But because I don't know anything about that group, because I have not seen them play NFL football, arbitrarily, I can't, they're locked. There's so much that they can go. Same thing with the wide receiver group. Christian Watson did a lot of the heavy lifting for where that team ended up. But behind him, a lot of question marks. And if you have too many question marks, I can't override that in my head when putting this list together, and I can't move you up the list. And so I know you're upset about where I have the offensive line ranked. And again, part of this process is we go through the list and then we make a change. And I can move them up a little bit based on this. But I have some question marks about this group in comparison to others. I just do. I do not think they're a top 10 group. That's just a personal opinion of mine. And these are my lists. And so we can have these debates. So I've locked in the top 4. I think teams that have generated the most buzz in conversation are Pittsburgh and Green Bay. And I have them 16 and 17. People want to move Pittsburgh down a little bit, and people want to move Green Bay up a little bit. And so we can have those conversations. And so I would ask everybody, is there any other team in front of Pittsburgh in the chunk that we've discussed that we feel needs to move out? Sam, very late joiner to the party, says, why are we mad? We are mad because I did the offensive line rankings, and I knew when I put the list together that this was going to be the show that generated the most debate because this was the hardest list to put together for me personally. For me, I think the top 4 that I have are locked. You can put them in any kind of order, but I think Philly, Cleveland, Kansas City, and Dallas are locked at the top 4. I think the next group that we should probably try to lock is 1 through 10, and then we can debate the middle ground, which is what we always do on this show when we have these conversations. So we've got Detroit 5, Baltimore 6, Atlanta 7, the Chargers 8, the Vikings 9, the Broncos 10. That's what we have. Is there anybody in that group? I will ask the chat the question this way. Is there anybody in that group that the chat feels is egregious in being inside the top 10? Not their ranking, not exactly where they sit, but does anybody feel that there is an egregious team that was put in the top 10? Because if so, then we can have that debate. Taylor says it's the hardest list because you're debating the sum of 5 players. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into it. Bailey says, get the Vikings out of there. The interior of that line is not strong. The Vikings are not top 10. Okay. I will put them in bold. They're 9, so it's not like they're moving so far down. I will tell you, there's a team, and I'm not sidestepping, but there's just a team in between the Packers and the Vikings that I'd like to discuss. San Francisco, probably the hardest team for me to rank because I like Williams. I like Brendel a little bit. The rest of the offensive line, it's okay. It's not great, but I think as a unit, they played really well. And that's kind of the debate that we were having a little bit earlier of system versus talent, because I think based on just pure talent, San Francisco, I think, would go a little bit lower than where they currently sit at 13. And I think if you based it on scheme, they would be much higher on this list than I think 13. And so for me, I think they are a team that you kind of have to debate how you feel about that, right? And so again, that's kind of the way this works is you have to take the system out of the equation and you have to try to kind of base it on talent. And I thought 13 was splitting the difference on San Francisco, but maybe we move them down a little bit more. So I think I will ask the question again. Outside of Minnesota, does anybody want to highlight and debate any of these other teams? Detroit, Baltimore, Atlanta, the Chargers, the Broncos are the other teams in the top 10. If everybody else feels that those teams are worthy of being in the top 10, then what we'll do is I'll remove Minnesota, I'll move Denver up to 9, and then we'll have a top 10 spot that we can put a team in and then debate the order. That would be the way that I think is best to do this. Again, I knew this list has got a lot of different permutations, more so than I think any of the other lists that we've done. And so I want to do this the right way. So Denver's depth chart, here's what Denver's starting offensive lineman is. And again, that's what we're doing here. We've got Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Miners, Mike McGlinchey. That's the starting offensive line. Taylor says, is Detroit over Atlanta? Detroit is over Atlanta. Detroit is at 5. Atlanta is at 7. I like the talent of Detroit. I think we've got 2 good tackles. We've got solid in the middle, veteran presence across the line. I like that line quite a bit. But yes, we have Detroit over Atlanta. So we're going to take Minnesota, and I'm going to Command C them, so I have them on my keyboard here. But we are going to move Denver up to 9 for the moment. And then we have a top 10 spot. Where is Seattle again? Seattle is 12. Seattle's currently sitting 12. I think I'm sorry, guys. Listen, I allow debate here on the show. It's what we do. We pass motions to change things all the time. But at the end of the day, I've got to feel comfortable with the list. And if you guys can convince me of an argument, I normally go with it. I'm locking in the tops. I'm locking in the top 8. I'm just doing it. The top 8 of Philly, Cleveland, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Lions, the Ravens, the Falcons, and the Chargers. We are locking in the top 8. It's not happening. We're not moving a team. We're not moving a team inside that group. If we want to maybe get Green Bay in there and have them, Taylor, what a great question you asked here, because I feel like we're here. So we're going to go to this screen. Just give me 2 seconds to fix something here. We are now into this screen. This is the screen that everybody loves to see. Now I need to zoom in for you guys so that you guys can be able to see everything. So just give me a second to zoom in to an appropriate size here, because I know you guys can't see this. All right, you guys should be able to see this a little bit better now. Here's what we've got. Sportsnet says, I think Seattle will grade out as a top 10 unit due to the offense with those wide receivers and running backs. Yeah, and again, it's not really what we're doing here. We're just looking at it from a talent perspective, and I think there's enough talent here to kind of put this group in. So now we have an open spot. We have Minnesota in the cloud. Minnesota in the cloud. Seattle was a disaster on the interior in the second half of last season, but with projection for progress, I don't hate the ranking wide range. Right. I think if you assume 100% progress, I think they're way high up. If you discuss how they were bad in the second half last year with the line, I think they would fall kind of into this kind of range based on just pure talent, because I think they've got 2 really good tackles. So I thought splitting the difference was in this range. So here's what we're gonna do. There's Sam, 1,000%. The takeaway that I have from this is that offensive line play collectively as a group is not very good across the league. It is not good. This is a barren wasteland after like 8. It just is. It's just a nightmare. So here's what we want to do. Here's where I have Green Bay, right? And I know that's it's generating a lot of controversy. I think we can move them up. I think you can make the case that they're better than Pittsburgh. So we're going to do that just for a second. We're going to do that for just for a second. We're going to take them and put them there. Cincinnati. Brown, Volson, Karras, Kappa, and Williams or Collins, right? Because I don't know what they're going to do here. Brown was okay last year, not great. I think this is a solid interior. It's not going to wow anybody. I don't know who's going to be the starting right tackle. So I think I can get to enough question marks to say this guy is a standard, this guy is a standard, and this guy is a standard. So I think we can move the Packers up here. And see, this is why, Janelle, I know you're upset that where I had the Packers, but this is why we work through the progress. That's why we work through the process, because then we can do it. We can look at it. We put a list together. I said it was hot off the presses. I said we were going to make changes. We just let the process play out, and we will get to a list that I think we like. I think the Dolphins have 3 quality starters, which is more than the Bengals. Sam, can we just work on getting the Packers slotted, and then we'll come back here and debate the lower tiers of offensive linemen in the National Football League, okay? Please. I want to get the top 10 sorted. Okay. This is a fun one, I think, with the Patriots. I think this guy is pretty good. I think this guy's okay. This guy wasn't terrible last year. We're moving him up. We're going to move him up 2 spots because I'm going to move him up San Francisco because I think I'm going to get San Francisco to a number that I like a little bit more. I can do this. I think I can do this and feel comfortable. And then we need to put Minnesota somewhere. And so I need to put them in. I think we've lost Minnesota. They're just going to go here, and I don't have their offensive linemen. I have the depth chart on the other screen, but we'll get there in a second. Okay. Is this better? I think this is better. I think now having, and for those listening in the podcast audience, what we've done here is we've put Green Bay in the top 10. We've moved them up from where I had them at, I think it's like 17, 19, and we moved them up to 10. And I think we got the Vikings in a spot where I think they're still highly regarded. Now I will say this. One of the things that's always going to happen when we do lists like this is there's always going to be a team that I'm higher on, at least, than other people. There's always going to be at least one team that I'm higher on than most. And for me, from an offensive line perspective, it is the Saints. I'm not willing to budge on where I have the Saints. I think this group can be really, really good. I think this group, if it stays healthy, could be threatening the top of this list. And so for me, that's projection based, right? If I was just going based on projection, I would have them up here. But I think this guy's pretty good. Ramchek's pretty good. I think Pete's pretty good. I think Penning can be good. And I think he's going to be solid enough going into this season where I felt comfortable saying that the Saints are 11. So again, I want to make something very clear because it was pointed out in the chat and I appreciate everybody mentioning it. There is a balance that we have to strike here when doing these lists of projection and the best case scenario that we think these lines can be and the worst case scenario going into the season. And in some cases, we have to split the difference. It's not as easy as having 5 good offensive linemen as these 2 teams are and just putting them up there at the top. After that, because there's a body of work here that is very easy to look at, I think after that, you really have to balance it out. Janelle, I know other people have the Saints ranked near 30th. I understand that. I don't personally get it. I like a lot about this list, about their group, and so they're higher up on the list for me. Again, it's my list. If I was going to copy other people's lists and have lists as everybody else, then we wouldn't be doing this project. This is part of the fun is that I get to put this list together. You guys get to grill me. We get to have some really cool football debates here on the show. That's kind of the point. That's kind of what we're going for. And so I think, and Heldy's making a point here that I think is very important. He says, I think at the very least, the Saints will have a very solid O-line, which is better than most of the league. Folks, look at what is going on down here at this list. Because I'm here to tell you, I looked at some other lists to see what other people were doing. Because I put this bottom part of the list together and I was like, all right, how do other people look at this? There are a lot of people who like this group. And for those of you listening in the podcast audience, I'm highlighting the Las Vegas Raiders group. For me personally, I can't get there. I don't think it's a very good group. But there are other people that have it as a top 14 group. I can't get there. There are other groups that I like more going into 2023. And so it's personal preference. And we'll see. We'll see if I end up being right or if those other people end up being right about how good these offensive lines are. But that's the fun. That's what we're doing here. So, okay. I think we're going to lock in the top 11. And I think the one thing you can say about the top 11 here is we've got a lot of talent across the board. And there's somebody in the chat who says Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing. The Raiders should be higher. That is not what we are doing here when ranking these offensive lines. We are not just looking at the output of their running backs to determine whether or not they are successful offensive lines. There's a lot that goes into these projections. Talent of the specific players goes into account here with this list, and not necessarily just the output that they put together. So many teams have below average lines, which would make a more average or slightly above average line go much higher. Yes. And I think that's kind of the thing that people are looking at when they see this list is there are teams that they're like, yeah, that team top 16 for you, Chris, and it's like, yeah, because it's not a lot of groups that I like. So okay, so we've got a top 11 so far locked in. Let's do the thing that we normally do. Let's lock in the bottom part of this list. Is there anybody that has any concerns about locking in this chunk right here, 28 through 32? Which is Arizona 28, Tampa 29, Washington 30, the Rams 31, the Titans 32. And I'll just walk you through my thought process very quickly here. For the Cardinals, we've got one player that I think is good in DJ Humphries. Paris Johnson is an unknown. They're moving him inside at left guard. I hate that if that's what they end up doing. So the right side of the line I think is a disaster. So they had to be bottom 5 because I think there's an entire side of their line that's a mess. The Bucks, Wirfs is good. You got a rookie starting at right guard. Jensen's coming off of an injury. Gadecki hasn't been great. There's a lot of there's at least 3 question marks there. The Commanders, I've got 3 question marks. The Titans, I think the potential of the group is higher than 32, but just based on talent, we got a rookie, we got a second-year player. Just no question marks at all 5 spots. And with the Rams, you got question marks with Steve Avila, who's a rookie. Noteboom and Havenstein are probably the 2 guys that you look at and say, we like these guys the most. But again, I think there's at least 3 question marks on all of these teams to where they are in the bottom 5. I have seen 0 objection in the chat to this after asking it. So we're going to lock those teams in. Taylor B wants to move the Titans above the Rams. I can't do it. I can't. We're gonna bold the teams that we've locked in just so I can see it easier and you guys can see it easier here on the thing. All right, so now we are now debating. We have the top 11. We are now debating spots 12 through 27. This is exactly what we do here on the show. We don't debate the top. We don't debate the bottom. It's right in the middle that we debate. The middle tier. That's what we debate here on the show. Okay. I think the best place to do this is to go from the back of the list and move up. And so I will do this in chunks of 5. Do we feel anything about this group, 23 through 27? The Bills, the Giants, the Colts, the Jets, and the Jags. Is there anything in this group that we think is egregious? I love the Giants with Thomas and Neal. I like JMS a lot, but those other 2 spots are rough. It's not like Neal had a perfect year last year. I thought he had a better second half, and so that's the reason why they're lower. Taylor B wants the Jags a little bit higher as our resident Jags fan. Well, here's the problem. How many games is this guy going to play? Is a wee woo? Should I go to the Discord? I'll go to the Discord. Sad wee woo. What's the set? What? Oh, the Iron Sheik passed away. That's the worst wee woo of them all. Wrestling legend, the Iron Sheik. Thanks, Jamie, for the sad wee woo. Really appreciate that you bringing the mood down here on the show. That's unfortunate that the Iron Sheik has passed away. Wrestling legend. Taylor B, how many games is this guy going to play? Because it's probably not going to be... He's going to get suspended, right? So he's going to miss some time. I think this side's okay. I think the right side of the line's okay. I worry about the interior of this group. Like, I don't know. I feel like if we're going to move them up, it's going to just be like to like here, to like 25. And I don't know. Because again, I think they need to be behind the Jets. So that means we'd have to move both of these teams. I'm locking in this group. I'm locking in this group. 23 through 27. So we are now debating 12 through 22, which is exactly what we want. Somebody in the chat mentioned how are the Colts behind? How are the Panthers behind the Dolphins? We have the Dolphins 18, the Panthers 19. Now this was some movement here. I like Icky. Let's talk about this. I like Icky. I think the Dolphins have Armstead if he's healthy, which we're going to assume going into 2023 he's healthy. They've got him. Connor Williams is solid. That's 2. The right side of the line's a little bit of a concern for me. I don't hate the left side, and I like Williams. The right side's a bit of a question mark for me. Shocking that the chat wants to move the Texans up a little bit. That's shocking to me. I thought at 21 I was going to get grilled for where I had them. So just so you know, chat, there was a little bit of a bias because I wanted to put them higher, but I was like, no, I'm going to be called a Texans homer if I do this. Now, Tate, the question with Kelly is he didn't have a good 2022. That's a concern. He wasn't very good last year, and so I think going into this season, this is a bit of a question mark, and like Raymond's a question mark. Nelson, yes, Nelson's the guy that does the heavy lifting here, and so I think this, if Kelly can get back on good ground, this list can be higher. But I think going into this season, I have to do it based on my priors. And my priors for the Indianapolis Colts are Kelly hasn't been particularly good lately. And so that's the thing. Again, at season's end, Tate, this list could look vastly different, just like any of these lists can look. That's the point. We're doing the pre, and then we'll do the postseason stuff. We'll do this preseason, and we'll do these lists. And then at the end of the year, we'll have an entire series where we go through these positions, and we'll rank them how they played throughout the year. So we will get there. We will get there. The people want to move the Texans up. They want to move the Panthers up. They want to move the Patriots down. I kind of want to move the Patriots down too. I think Brown and Andrews do the heavy lifting there. Who's going to come up? The Dolphins, because we have 3 guys that we like. We can do that. I think I want to put the Dolphins in front of the 49ers. I think I want to put the Dolphins like here. I think I want to do this. What does this look like? So we've got Minnesota 12. We're locking in Minnesota, right? I think everybody liked where we ended up with Minnesota. So we'll lock in the 12. So we're debating 13 through 22. Seattle. Do we put Miami in front of Seattle? Do we get Miami all the way up to 13? Let's look at this. Let's compare these 2 groups. You got Cross and Lucas at the tackle spots. Question marks a little bit on the interior. For Miami, I like their left tackle, I like their center, and I like their left guard. So I like their left side more so than I like the interior for Seattle. So what am I going to put a bigger priority on? The Dolphins are going to have Tua play quarterback. Their right tackle spot's a little bit more important there, but we're doing this based on talent. We're just looking at talent. Armstead is better. Yeah, I think Armstead, Eichenberg, and Williams are better. So we're going to move this up. We're going to move them up. Dolphins are going to move in front of Seattle. San Francisco, it's going to move down. People want to move the Texans up. Tate says Texans at 14 seems fair, but I love Scruggs' college tape, and tackle is locked down for them, which is so important. Yeah, I mean, they've got Tunsil and Green. They've got a great left side. I like Mason at right guard. We're moving them up. They're coming up this list. Don't hold me to this, but we're going to put them there for just a second. We're going to put them 16. And then we're going to look at this. Okay, now we're going to look at this as a brand new list here and think that 13 is the top of the list and 22 is the bottom of the list. Do we think we've got the teams at the bottom correct? Chicago and the Raiders? I do. I think we've got the teams at the bottom correct. So we're going to lock those teams in. So now we've got Carolina that people want to move up. Cincinnati might have to come down a little bit. Maybe New England comes down. Maybe San Francisco comes down. I've got 3 teams that we want to move down. So I think San Francisco is going to come down. I think just for argument's sake, let's move them all the way to the bottom. Let's move them all the way to the bottom. And let's move the Patriots towards the bottom. All of a sudden, the Texans keep moving up this list. They're at 15 right now. Tunsil and Green over Cross and Lucas. I think this is a good new list that we have. So we're going to put Miami at 13, the Texans at 14. I think I like that group. So now we're debating 15 through 20, which is Seattle, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Carolina, New England, and the 49ers. I think we can get Carolina up in front of Cincinnati. And I think we can. I think this is the new list. Seattle 15, Carolina 16, Cincinnati 17, Pittsburgh 18. Maybe we flip Pittsburgh in New England because we're projecting a little bit there, and that's a more true representation of splitting the difference. So we got Seattle 15, Carolina 16, the Bengals 17, the Patriots 18, Steelers 19, 49ers 20. I like this more. I'll read it. We'll read it through one more time, start to finish, and we will see if there's any changes that people want to make. Philly 1, Cleveland 2, Chiefs 3, Cowboys 4, Lions 5, Ravens 6, Falcons 7, Chargers 8, Broncos 9, Packers 10, Saints 11, Vikings 12, Dolphins 13, Texans 14, Seahawks 15, Panthers 16, Bengals 17, Patriots 18, Steelers 19, 49ers 20, Bears 21, Raiders 22, Bills 23, Giants 24, Colts 25, Jets 26, Jags 27, Cardinals 28, Bucks 29, Commanders 30, Rams 31, Titans 32. That's the 1 through 32. Still don't understand Miami ahead of Carolina. Armstead is the only guy that might start on Carolina's own line. Would you play Christensen over Eichenberg? You'd probably take Christensen over Eichenberg. Bozeman over Williams. Maybe Carolina does need to move up. Maybe Houston needs to move up. We're making changes. Houston goes up to 13. Yeah, I mean, Bailey, it's the right side of the offensive line is the question mark for Miami when looking at this. I mean, they're the question mark. But the interior of Seattle is a question mark. And so I think if you're going to be a top 16 team, you have to have a few question marks, right? I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And so we're going to do this, and then I think we're going to put Seattle. I think, man, I kind of want to now move New England back up. I kind of want to move. New England back up a little bit from where they currently at 18. I kind of want to move them. No, I put Houston, Seattle, Carolina over Miami. I mean, I've got Houston and Carolina there. Seattle's the team that we're questioning. Armstead, the right side of the offensive line. And so I guess the philosophical debate we're going to have here is we've got tackles in Cross and Lucas. And do we like that over what Armstead is and what Jackson isn't? I think we can do this. I think we can get there, Jamie. I think you've led me towards the answer. And then I think this is better. I kind of want to move New England up, but this is the right side of this offensive line is just a massive question mark for me. And I just don't love it. All right, this is the list because we could be here all day doing this. We could be here all day debating this. We might be bumping them because of the rookie tackles, Bailey says in reference to Seattle. I mean, bumping them, we got them to 15. That's not really that high. And I think this chunk right here is very debatable, 15 through 19. The Seahawks, Dolphins, Bengals, Patriots, Steelers. But I like the range that these teams are in. So maybe you flip the Bengals. No, we're locking. We're locking. If we sat here and did this, I can make 47 changes to this list at this point. And I like where we got here. We moved a lot around, but I like what we've done here. All right, so here we go. The final list: 2023 offensive linemen going into the 2023 season: Eagles, Browns, Chiefs, Cowboys, Lions, Ravens, Falcons, Chargers, Broncos, Packers, Saints, Vikings, Texans, Panthers, Seahawks, Dolphins, Bengals, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Bears, Raiders, Bills, Giants, Colts, Jets, Jags, Cardinals, Bucks, Commanders, Rams, Titans. Taylor. Okay, so where's the number where you get legitimately concerned for the team's quarterback? Well, that's a different conversation, right? Because I think, right, we don't have questions about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Like I start to have questions for Miami with this right side of the offensive line for Tua. I have questions about the right side for Mac. I have questions about this tackle stuff for Cincinnati. San Francisco's the outlier, right? Because I think San Francisco schemes a little bit better, but I would have concern about this side of the offensive line. But I think the top 15, you feel like you have enough infrastructure to protect your quarterback, and then 16 and below, you feel like you have question marks. And kind of truly, that's what we're going for, right? Like that kind of feels like what the end result was trying to be. Like if you have a top 16 offensive line, or give or take, like we feel pretty good about your ability to protect your quarterback. And so in a roundabout way, we kind of got there, right? So I feel pretty good about it now, answering it through that lens. Um, I'll highlight teams whose potential I think could get them in that conversation. I think if this pans out in Chicago, I'd be pretty happy moving them up. I think this group has got high potential to move up. I think depending on the New York Giants, I think if Laken Tomlinson gets back to being what he was in San Francisco and Mekhi Becton is healthy, I think the Jets are a potential candidate to move up. I think the Jags could be a potential candidate to move up. Other than that, I've got questions. Carolina and Houston did a good job building protection for their young QBs. Yeah, 13 and 14. The Houston Texans and Carolina Panthers, I think in every single tier we've done, are right next to each other. We'll check it. This will be the last thing we do because I'll go through all the lists. I think they're right next to each other in almost every list. QBs, Carolina 27, Houston 30. Then 3 spots for each other. Running backs, Houston 20, Carolina 21. Wide receivers, Houston 24, Carolina 25. Tight ends, Carolina 17, Houston 22. They are close in all of these rankings. They have done a very nice job. I think they are 2 teams that will be very, very productive this year. I think they will surprise some people. I don't think in terms of wins, but I think they'll be more competitive. I think Harrison will wind up being a better starter for Jacksonville than Robinson by the end of the year. Well, Taylor, I think you're right, but I think we got to do that at the end of the year, right? Tate says Colts have huge potential if you include Jake Witt and Blake Freeman competing for right tackle and Braden Smith bumping to right guard, which he played at Auburn. I think if Kelly can get back to where he's at, then they have a group here that could be pretty competitive. Yes, I agree 100%. The Bears aren't going to throw according to prospects and props, so I'm not worried for Fields at all. It's true. They're going to play every game 16-9. Bailey, listen to today's prospects and props because I make another case. Make another case for that. I appreciate everybody being here and being a part of this conversation. And for those of you listening in the podcast feed, this might be the one show. Normally, I try to keep the show in a way that is able to be consumed just for the audio audience. It was very visual today with some of the conversations that we had to have. So highly recommend you checking out the YouTube side of things, checking out all of the movement that we did, and you can see the list. You can actually see it. It's a great companion piece for this. Yes, Janelle, even you. I hope everybody understands, and I'll go back to the big screen for video for this. I hope everybody understands because I try to say it every chance I get, but I will say it here to close the show. I appreciate every single person that comes in here and debates with me on this show with these lists. That's what the show is designed to do. When designing this show and putting together what I wanted this YouTube show to be and this podcast to be, the idea was that we would have these football debates and we would have these conversations, and it's not just me talking to you guys for 35 minutes, okay? We are past the 45-minute mark for the podcast audience. This is going to crack one of the top 5 shows that we've ever done here on TDN Daily in terms of length because of the debate, because of the conversation. That's not just because of me. That is because of you guys. And so I greatly appreciate everybody being here. Now, I will tell you, by the end of the season, this list could look foolish. I could look dumb for this list. But that's kind of the point. I have no problem putting myself out there, giving you my list. We can have these conversations. We can have these debates. We can philosophically go through this and do this stuff and have these conversations and debate these players and have fun talking football. That's the idea of this show. So if you come in here and you say, Chris, you have my team ranked way too low. Here are the 5 reasons why. We take those 5 reasons, we debate it as a group, and we make changes. I have zero problem holding up my hand and saying, yeah, we got this team wrong. Let's make a change. Zero issue with that. That's the point of the show. That's the point of this community. So I greatly appreciate every single one of you being here on the show. And as Taylor B mentions, how dare I make wrong predictions in June and then I'm wrong and I should feel bad. Thank you, Taylor B. Greatly appreciate that. So for those listening in the podcast feed, again, highly recommend you check out the YouTube side of things today. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. You can be a part of exactly what happened here today, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, over on the YouTube channel, the Draft Network. If you want to catch the VOD on demand, you can do so under the live tab as well. But again, please rate, review, subscribe, share the show with a friend, continue to build this momentum, continue to help us build out what is a very, very awesome football community here on the TDN Daily Show. So I appreciate everybody making this show a part of their day. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Wednesday. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. I saw a post-show question in the chat. What was it? Sportsnut, post-show question. Does the Madden curse hit Allen and the Bills? Has the Madden curse been a thing recently? Like I know like in the mid 2000s it was a thing. Like hasn't it kind of died off a little bit? Chris makes wrong predictions every month, to be fair. Chris, share our Bills take. Is this what we're doing in the post show? This is what we're doing? All right. I'll do it. Sportsnut, I don't think it hits Allen and the Bills, the Mad Curse, but I will say, because this is leading into what Jamie's talking about, Jamie and I are not sure the Bills are going to be as good as everybody thinks they are this year. Jamie and I are very concerned. Jamie and I think that they might finish third in the division. Now, let's look at this from just what we've done here, right? Quarterback, we put them really high, right? We put them second because of Josh Allen. But running back, we put them 29th. Wide receiver, 17th. Tight end, 7th. Offensive line, 23rd. They got to overcome a lot of stuff, I think. Josh Allen's going to have to overcome a lot of stuff. Jamie and I have said that the Bills might just be a 10-win team. And that just might be what they are. Josh Allen was an absolute freak before his injury, though, but we worked out last week. Only quarterbacks matter. Yeah, we did. We did work that out last week. Yeah, we did have that conversation. Who was on the Madden cover last year? I think wasn't John Madden on the cover of Madden last year? Who was on the cover of Madden 20? Was it 22, 23? Yeah, John Madden was on the cover. So there wasn't a Madden curse in 2020 or last year's game, whatever version they're on. So Lamar was on it in 2021 and he got hurt. Okay, so then maybe there's more. Maybe this has been a thing recently. I will tell you guys this list, today's list. I when I was putting it together yesterday, Jamie can personally attest to this. The first, Jamie and I in the same recording software that I go live with, TDN Daily, is where we do prospects and props. I hopped into the studio. I had everything ready to go. I had the collab cam, which is the thing that allows Jamie to beam into the show. He hopped in. The first thing I said to him, I didn't say, "Hey Jamie, how was your day?" Like, because it was the first time that he and I had interacted all day, right? The first thing I said to him, this offensive line list sucks. The first words out of my mouth were complaining about this list. At that point in the day, I had the top 8 and the bottom 5, and that was it. And I had been just going back and forth on just teams of like, where's this team going to be? Where's this team going to be? What am I going to do with this team? And I just had so much just back and forth about this. It was painful. It was painful. Chris, Jamie, can we do a charity bet on Justin Fields' attempts per game? I think it's being undervalued. How much going from Pettis, Velus, Jones, and Equimini St. Brown is on their ability to open it up. Me and Betts are, ask Jamie about how bets work with him. But if for a charity bet, Bailey, I'm in. You put in the chat. We can discuss it over in the Discord. But for charity, absolutely, I'm in. Tommy Tremble, quote, "This is really the first time that we've really been coached up receiving wise, other than us trying to figure it out on our own." Where's my Tommy Tremble live at? Not giving up. Martinez says the Dolphins ranking is about right as long as Armstead is playing because we've already seen when Armstead, when he misses games, the Dolphins O-line falls apart. Yeah, Jamie, very anti-gambling, Taylor. Bailey says, also, can the show tomorrow be on how Fiorentina won the trophy and built the superpower? That's a deep cut, Bailey. That's a deep cut that not a lot of people in this chat are going to understand. But you came after me personally there. You came after me personally. I am extremely nervous. 3 hours till kickoff. 3.5 hours till kickoff. I am very, very nervous. Jamie, I might be late to prospects and props recording today, based on the result of the West Ham Fiorentina Europa Conference League final, which is in a couple of hours. So if the game goes long, I apologize, but I might be a few minutes late. But no, Bailey, that's not what the show is going to be about tomorrow. The pre-show tomorrow is going to be about celebrating West Ham's victory in Declan Rice's last game for the team, okay? That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a massive celebration. So we're going to switch over to the defensive side of the ball on Friday. We are going to do defensive line first. And that'll be an interesting group. I want to see, because I was using Football Guys for depth charts, how do they characterize defensive line here? Do they have... Now, they've got edge rushers in here. This is going to be almost impossible to do. Just put the Bears 32nd in bold now. Probably. Yeah. We could probably do that right now. We could put Philly... We can put Philly number 1, and we can put the Bears 32, and we've got 2 teams done already. Tate says, do you think a deep, talented wide receiver room or O-line room is more important for a young franchise wide receiver? A young franchise quarterback. What do I think is more important? Do you think, Tate, I'll answer your question with a question. Do you mean early on, or do you mean just like in general? Because I think early on, you need to keep the quarterback upright. I think there's a balance you can strike. I think you need to have one top wide receiver. But I think you really need to be able to protect your quarterback. You got to be able to stand him upright, because I think you need to allow them to. I just kicked over. Oh, guys, I kicked over something and I just realized. Look what I found yesterday. It's back. I found the notebook. I think, so first contract, I think offensive lineman, because I think you need to put this quarterback in the position where they're able to get meaningful reps where they're learning, right? And if they are constantly under pressure and their offensive line is not able to protect them and they're just getting sacked, maybe it's meaningful. Maybe it helps you, teach, sliding and stepping up in the pocket and stuff like that. But if you're not able to throw the ball down the field and you're not able to make plays and make passes, that's going to hurt your development as well. So that, to me, is offensive line would be a priority for me over a deep, talented wide receiver. Dolphins could be special this year, although explosive, this Dolphins offense has lots of room for improvement. Yeah, Martina, I agree. I think they, quarterback health is question mark number 1. They don't have a great tight end group for this upcoming season. Their wide receivers, we know what they've got there. I think the areas of concern are, can Tua stay healthy? What can they get out of their running back room in terms of health? And what can they get from the tight end room that no longer has Mike Gesicki in it? Those would be the questions that I would have on offense. Also, the health of the offensive line with Teron Armstead. So it feels very boom or bust, right? It feels very boom or bust for them here in 2023. But if it does boom, they're going to be very special, and they're going to be a team that can go far. All right, guys, we've crossed the hour mark here on the show today. I've got to go edit the show and get it out for the podcast audience, but I appreciate every single one of you being here. If you are new, I saw some new faces in here throughout the show. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, come on back, see us again tomorrow. You'll get notifications every time we go live, and it's the same time every day, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday here on the YouTube channel. We've got a lot of fun stuff planned for the remainder of the week. And Bailey's going to have the last word here. He says, Chris, who is going to be on Hard Knocks? My guess is the Jets. My guess is it's going to be the Jets with Rodgers. They are one of the teams that can be picked. And so I think that they would be foolish to not pick them from just a storyline and narrative and content perspective. So just wondering why it's taken so long. Yeah, they announced the Lions last year in like March. Jets Twitter has been of the belief that it's because they're doing their One Jets Drive series, and Hard Knocks didn't want to undercut the Jets doing that, but that feels like a very weird reason for them to not to not do that, to not announce. But yes, it has taken a while, which is interesting to me. But all right, guys, I appreciate everybody being here. Coming back to see us again tomorrow. We've got one more positional ranking show this week. That'll be on Friday, so we'll do something different on tomorrow's show. We'll see what I can come up with, what we can cook throughout the day here from a topic perspective. But hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thanks, everybody, being here again. Greatly appreciate being a part of the conversation. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. I'll talk to you all tomorrow.